Good evening. Welcome to our evening reflection. Many people these days seem to be visiting the Greek islands for their holidays. Perhaps an area of Greece that is less popular as a holiday resort is the northeastern coast. Beautiful rocky coves and bays overlooked by the snow-capped peaks of Mount Olympus. One person who did visit that area was Paul, and when he visited and went to establish the church at Thessalonica, Paul and Timothy were on one of their missionary journeys, and while in Troas, Paul had a vision from God in which he saw a man from Macedonia calling him to go and visit that area. Eventually, after a number of exciting adventures, including being freed from prison in Philippi, Paul went and established a new church for the believers in Thessalonica. Later, Paul wrote a series of letters of encouragement to the churches that he had established. And one of these was the letter to the Thessalonians. And in this letter to a church that was struggling with various problems, Paul sets out to encourage the believers. He first encourages these young Christians to stand firm in their faith. He says, what is lacking in our faith must be supplied. What is shaky must be strengthened. And what has been started must be completed. This was particularly relevant to that young church. And surely all those things are equally relevant to our own church situations today. Secondly, Paul encourages them to please God. He reminds them that they must seek to please God in the way they live their daily lives. He knew that they were living in spiritually challenging times, just as we are today, and they had to be seen to be different, to demonstrate God's standards in their day-to-day lives, and so should we. And thirdly, Paul encourages the members of that church in Thessalonica to encourage one another. He tells them to encourage those who are in leadership positions within the church. It's so easy for our church leaders to feel isolated because they're not being effectively supported by the members of the church. He encourages them to support one another, to be aware of those within the fellowship who need help, those who are sick, the bereaved, those struggling with work situations or relationship situations. He encourages them to pray together and to worship together so that they can build up their own faith and be real witnesses to the people around them. So these three areas that Paul realized were so important in building up a young, struggling church in Thessalonica, and three areas that are probably equally true, equally important in the life of our own church today. So let us take note of them and seek to encourage one another, to stand firm in our faith, to live lives that are an effective witness to those we come into contact with, and to encourage one another as we face life's challenges and as we worship and pray together. week by week. A good lesson from Paul for each one of us. Have a good evening.